Okay, now let's talk about outdated systems and workflows. This is something I harp on because EHRs are maybe, just one of the worst pieces of technology that we've come up with, and we're stuck with them, and that's what they are. So you've dealt with these systems and people and executive teams, but at the end of the day, there's systems and workflows that sort of work around the systems. Maybe what are some of the most surprising, outdated practices you've encountered, and how do you approach suggesting change?
Well, we'll start at the EHR system, the practice management system, right? It blows my mind that they have not evolved. They're just when I think I've seen the worst, the oldest, the most archaic, here comes another one. It's like, oh, wow, okay. I try to say nothing surprises me, but I do still get amazed. And, a lot of times it's the test is the reports. Mm-hmm. Let's get some reports out of here. Well, it's very hard to do a lot of times. It will completely bring the system down to its knees if you are trying to run something worthwhile. So the front line's all like, what the heck? Who's in the system? So you have to do it, off hours. And then if you were to successfully get a couple of useful reports, you still have to merge them together somehow because it doesn't give you the complete picture. So reports are a big thing. Now, a lot of times, here's what I see. Practices are, I'll get in there and I'll be like, well, how come it says, this is available to you. This is available to you when I'm trying to learn the system, say through the support team. And it's not even an option. Like that feature isn't there, or that button doesn't seem to look like the one you're showing. They're using a version from three updates ago, right? So I will hear customer support say, we've been trying to get this group to go up in their, do their update. They just haven't done it. They're about 3 versions behind. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, let me let them know what they've been missing out on. And sure enough, within the week, usually the IT guy's in there going, okay, let's get it updated. Let's get it updated. Yeah. Especially if it's on the clinical side, they're pretty quick to respond to those kind of reasons to update. But the billing people, do not speak up for those kind of things, and they don't feel empowered enough. So they are the ones that really have to have, a reason to kick and scream.
Yeah.
And then then you have settings in the system. It's like, well, you are on the latest version. You are on a decent system, but nobody has revisited the settings to things. I mean, I'll use something as simple as your threshold for small balance, your statements. If they're going out for, is it $5? Is it $25? Does it have dunning messages, built in, or does every bill look like the first bill when the patient gets it? And it happens quite often when I will say, I'm just going to go into your system settings and see what it's set at. They're like, oh, I've never seen that before. What is it set at? I'm curious, and then they find out they've been missing out on a common low amount of $9.80, which is common for every Medicare patient who gets this particular lab, but their small balance threshold was 10. No one's ever revisited the fact that probably should be lowered. So that's just a simple example, but there are so many. We can talk about that on some other session, but settings are not revisited because the manager before them put it in place, and it's just easily overlooked as to what their setting parameters could be.
Yeah. So you've got the system side, and then you've got the workflow side, that is interwoven with the systems. And sometimes even if you didn't make a system update, there's an obvious workflow problem, but people have been doing this for a while. So how do you get people to change their behavior, their workflow behavior, without being disrespectful, but actually making the point that it needs to happen? What are some tactics that have worked?
Well, that's the hardest one. That's the hardest one. And I can say, you know, I don't want to sound like I go in there and work all kinds of magic. There are times when the resistance to change is so great that it you can't. Okay. So you have to kind of pick and choose your battles. Um, I often use the technique of let's just try it with this insurance payer, or let's
Mm.
just try it with this report, and I'll pick someone on the team that is not as resistant to say, give it a try and let's see. And typically, you know, you want the team members to be the cheerleader to what you're trying to do. You show one, you sell it to the one that didn't that make your life easier? Did you like it? What don't you like about it? And then everybody kind of gets involved. Oh, so you liked doing it that way? Yeah, I mean, it did save me a lot of time. This is the fastest I've ever gotten through a batch. It's
Mm.
like, okay, so you try to use, I don't want to say peer pressure, but you try to use influence of their own people. They're more likely to appreciate it, you know, coming from someone that's actually tried it. Another thing I do is, oh gosh, if they want to pick, you know, it's not always wrong what they're doing either. But what I see is this, you know, Susie's doing it this way and Janie's doing it that way. I try to bring them together and say, why do you do it this way? Because I do like that. That's quicker and it seems to be more efficient. But I see over here, she's doing it another way. They don't even realize that there were two ways to do it. They're like, oh my gosh, who taught you that way? Well, I learned it, you know, day one. She's like, nobody ever showed me that, you know. So there's that kind of thing where you really have to compare how people are doing things, why they're doing it that way. Spreadsheets is a common tool. I'm going to have to plead guilty to the fact that I use spreadsheets a lot without the real skill sets until I came to Lockbox. Honestly, I thought I was pretty good at it. And then now I'm looking back going, gosh, if I had known what I know now, I could have done some fancy stuff for these people, you know, in my consulting of this client 2 years ago kind of thing. I honestly say that the team members need some basic 101, you know, like get the IT guy to set aside 1 hour and just say, well, let me show you a few things. I mean, it sounds trivial. It sounds like something you wouldn't hear any other consultant suggest, but just even a crash course in some small features on the system, like the snipping tool. You know, the snipping tool was like, oh, wow. When somebody showed me that, I thought that's going to save 16 pieces of paper when I only needed that prior auth number, or I only needed the proof of medical necessity for that day. I don't need 16 pages. So just the little tricks also are helpful. And I had another thought, but keep talking. It'll
Well,
come to me.
so as you're witnessing workflow, so I think this is one of the challenging things. We face this in what we do at Lockbox when we're implementing, and you're actually changing more than one thing at a time. And so you're kind of asking a lot of the individual contributors to change not just one thing they do, but multiple things they do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that there is, how do you handle the pushback to that? Because there is a lot of, I already been doing it this way for 10 years and I'm going to keep doing it that way. I don't care what you say. How do you build the vibe of we're all going to change together? And it goes back to, hey, we're accomplishing this executive level goal. And to do that, we've all got to do these things. How do you turn that ship a little bit without, having folks fall overboard?
Well, if you have managed to gain that trust, that's kind of a third of the battle. And then to get the support of the bosses, the executives, to say, do what you got to do. And then really it's incrementally. You cannot change their world upside down overnight. You cannot come in and say, here is a brand new tool, stop everything you were doing the way you were doing it. And, you know, you have to phase it in. You phase it in by feature, by persons, and do it over time. I know that doesn't sound like a very fast moving way, but once they get a sense of, hey, change isn't so bad, they'll start to contribute to ideas for change. And we're witnessing that now with our client group, where there was a whole lot of fear and uncertainty. And now, I get an email going, hey, what if we tried this? Now it's become their own idea. Can we do this? This would really help change my world. I would love it. So that's when you've done a good job of gaining their trust and opening their mind up to change, and they're not feeling vulnerable to it. And really a lot of practices are waving the white flag. Like, they know they have to be open to other ways of doing things. So I think it's a time of very wide reception for that. Maybe not for the consultant, but for the tools.